Welcome to the Nailed It Wall.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Nailed It Wall. This week, we're going to reflect on the past 2 weeks of, what are we calling it? Is it distant learning? What's the actual name?
I think that's what it is it? Distance learning. Yeah.
Okay, distant learning. All right, people, buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 51 of the Nailed It Wall. 5-1. It's hard to believe.
It is.
I'm Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And I'm Mrs. Scofield.
Well, happy Sunday, partner. We haven't filmed the podcast on a Sunday, which is our normal routine, in quite a while.
I know. I was trying to think back. A long time, especially in the STEM lab. It feels good.
Yeah, it feels good to be back. It feels good. This is our first time. We haven't had a guest on in a while. Mm-hmm. It's just us sitting down. And all summer, we really talked about having our kids on and kind of sharing their feelings with everything. But schedules didn't work out. You know, these kids are busy. They're living the good life. They're living their best lives.
Their stories aren't going anywhere. I will tell you, though, when I left this morning, Sam did say, don't forget, I'm going to be on that podcast soon. Just let me know. So, you know, I think his people will call our people.
Yeah, we'll work something out. Maybe he has one of those EAs. What are those
called?
Yes,
that's what it was. Executive assistant.
Executive assistant.
Yeah.
We'll get in contact with his EA.
That's right.
As we start every episode, we start with our Nailed It of the week. What's your Nailed It this week?
Well, I really feel that, you know, going into the first 2 weeks of school, no matter any school year, but definitely in light of online teaching and, you know, distance learning and all of that, you know, relationships and setting the groundwork for what you're going to be doing that year is really, really important. So the first week, definitely, I think K all the way through, you know, seniors, it was all about relationships and kind of building that community. And that went really, really awesome last week. I love this group of kids. But then this week kind of built on that, but then it's kind of setting up expectations for how they'll learn. So reflecting on kind of their mindset, reflecting on how they've always done notes and things like that. So my big nailed it was, as I chatted with you, do I do the sketch notes when we don't know how long we're doing distance learning? So, you know, does it make sense to add another component that I would have typically taught them in class, in person, to what they're going to be doing? And but it's always been a really big part of how I teach and how kids learn. So thankfully, you did encourage me to come back around on that, and I rolled that out with the kids. But instead of doing it the way I typically do it, which is I do a whole lesson on how they perceive things in left brain, right brain, and, you know, just the way we interpret and how our brain learns. I just wanted them to understand about like hearing things and being able to synthesize it and breaking it down to what's important and kind of laying that out in a way that means something to them. So I read them the Paper Bag Princess, which is a Robert Munsch storybook, a picture book that I used to read to my preschoolers when I taught preschool. And it was that will probably be one of the highlights of my whole year, because every single 8th grader was listening to that story as if it was like the best thing they ever heard. And it was like having story time with them, and they were listening and they were so engrossed in doing what they, you know, their note taking. And I loved that part. And then I saw the submissions that they put in, and they are amazing. They are amazing. And I'm so proud of them. And I'm glad that I didn't give that up. And I was really excited to see that they really grasped the whole meaning of, yes, I'm reading a children's book to them, but they are actually doing the things that I wanted them to do. They grasped what was important. They could lay it out in storybooks or storyboard style, where they knew the transitions and kind of how things tied together in the big picture. So mission was accomplished, and I was very happy.
I saw some of those examples of sketch notes, and I was like, you need to start saving these. You need to tweet some of these out to still continue to kind of show all the cool things happening in our classes.
I loved it.
Now, tell me, what is the story of is it the Paper Bag Princess?
Oh, I know the story.
So did you read them the story and not show them the pictures, and they had to visualize the pictures in their mind?
Well, I did show them the pictures because I went back and forth about that. But honestly, when I teach, I always use visuals as well. So if I'm lecturing, then I would have pictures that illustrated those concepts anyway. So I felt that I could have done it without, but they really enjoyed it. And some of them didn't even look up to look at the pictures, but some of them you could see they would study the picture and then they would dive back in. And so the story of the paperback princess, which of course us with our views on Moxie and all of that, it very much speaks to me. Ella actually picked this book for me to read. I went through like Green Eggs and Ham and all these different things that I thought, oh, these would be good. But she was like, this one has such a good message, and it's about a girl who is a princess, and she's betrothed and to this guy named Ronald, and the dragon comes, steals him, and she has to find a way to trick the dragon into releasing Ronald. So she kind of, does her magic with
Ronald
that.
doesn't seem like a very prince kind of name.
Yeah, it's ironic that you say that, or kind of telling. But anyway, she rescues him, and then and the reason it's called Paper Bag Princess is the dragon burns everything, and all she can find to wear is this paper bag that she finds that didn't get burned up. So she wears that to go save him. And when she shows up and she rescues him, he complains about how she looks and how she smells and tells her to come back when she can present herself properly. And so basically she lets him know he's cut free, and she lives happily ever after. So it's pretty good.
So you didn't answer my question, though.
What is your question?
So what were the students drawing through this whole process? Sketch
What
noted.
did they draw? So
you showed them the pictures
so they could
kind of see it.
Okay, so what they're trying to do is, if I'm reading you the story, and so we would go through page after page to say, okay, so this is what they said here. Are all of these details important? Like if I had to tell you to recreate this story, are these relevant? Because when I'm telling stuff in class, they can't possibly write word for word, most of them, and that's not the point. It's like, do you understand the big ideas? So they would kind of capture that she was a princess and lived in a castle, and they would capture the arrogance of the dragon, and then kind of the tricks that she did to rescue, and likely the main ideas. And then they would draw out these different parts: the paper bag, the princess, the dragon, and all of that. And so and some of them were really funny, like the liberation at the end of Elizabeth. They had some really good pictures to kind of illustrate that. And so I seriously love. And the other thing that was an extra bonus is I would stop at the end, or right when Ronald kind of tees off, and we had a little mini lesson about how girls should never allow someone to speak to them that way, and kind of just knowing your self-worth and what that really looks like, and how that's not acceptable. And then I chatted with the boys and just said, like, this is unacceptable. You should never allow yourself to be a Ronald, and that's not putting yourself in a good light, and kind of just having a little mini lesson about the way we treat other people. So even though they were just kind of like, oh gosh, they heard it. And several of the girls had said, I love that message. And I think the boys and the girls need to hear that. So, I loved it.
I love that social emotional side right there. And I love that you took the time to stop and really make that moment something that you wanted to celebrate in the class there. So
I do.
Thank you for sharing that with
You're
us.
very
That
welcome.
was truly awesome. And your attendance, you just every day, you're like, I just love these kids.
They show
I'm so
up.
fired up. Like, I just love this
show up.
group. They're doing everything that I'm asking.
They really are. I honestly have no complaints about this group of 8th graders at all. They don't just show up. They participate. They are engaged. And I really enjoy coming every single day. And as teachers, the way we are, I really thought I would feel so... I don't know what the word is, but I felt like I would feel so sad and disconnected and kind of like stunted as a teacher. And I don't feel that way. In fact, it makes me think, okay, I'm going to be doing this next. How could I do this that they will really get excited and make it meaningful? And I'm so intentional about it because I just love being there with them. And I thought I would hate it. And it's not ideal, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
You are enjoying it. I love hearing your stories every day. I love to see your smile, and I love your spunk that you're bringing to these kids. Now my nailed it kind of goes like twofold here. The first one, earlier this summer, we had Myra Romano on.
Love her.
All right, an amazing illustrator, and she talked about gratitude and the importance of giving gratitude. And she's read the gratitude diaries, and she talked about journaling every day about something that you're thankful. Now, I've been reading the gratitude diaries. I'm starting to journal a little more, think about things that I'm thankful for. And me and you, we work very hard on the announcements. It's felt so good. how much fun that we have doing the announcements,
So
putting
much
those
fun.
out to the community. They're getting posted on our Sierra Verde Facebook page. They're on Twitter. All the teachers are loving it, and all the feedback we kind of get there. And at the beginning of the year, they talked about DV stars and giving those out. But on Friday, it was like our 10th day of announcements, like already 10 episodes in. And then Mrs. Bonham gave us a shout out for announcements with a DV star. And then Mrs. Smith from 3rd grade gave us one.
That's so cool.
So those things just like mean so much to you, and how much work that we put into them, and how much we love to do it, and tweeting them out. And we know Karen from Do Ink loves us, and Do Ink
so awesome.
is the green screen app that we use for it, and she's always tweeting her stuff out. She's like, "You guys are back! We're so excited!" So excuse me. So having so much fun on the announcements, and like we've been doing tell us about some of the new segments we've come up with.
Oh my gosh. I was just talking to you about this recently, where our whole goal for announcements is to have it be reflective of our school community. That's since it kind of got put on our plate, that's been our goal. And when we had the crew that we had last year, that was incredible. And we had so many highlights. And it sort of reached that goal because you were representing so many different grade levels, and we would go out and do like the Straight from the Mouth of Vipers, and we would pull things in, but it still didn't have that feel, even though I had 8th graders in my, the announcements and stuff, and that was great, but it just didn't have the same feel. So this year we've been doing more stuff where we ask questions like riddles or would you rather, and the national days, just kind of sometimes putting a poll out there where we're just like, where do you stand on this? And the conversations, because of the way Mr. Galletti set up our system for, day to day, announcements are a big part of everybody's schedule to begin with. And so I know they're having those conversations. The 8th graders will talk about it, and it's been so fun. Like, the would you rather is huge. I mean, just all of those little parts. There's something that you and I are working on for teachers to kind of bring that back. What else am I missing? It's been so good,
I think
though.
you kind of hit it. Like it's been so much fun for us to kind of incorporate that and get the students excited. And we just love how much the teachers are loving starting their day, like with our positive vibe and, what we bring through announcements. So that kind of made me really kind of step back and be like, I need to do a better job spreading gratitude around this campus and filling other people's buckets. The other fold earlier, you talked about being stunted. And this was like the first week of like, direct instruction, like, first, kind of moving away from those get to know you kind of scenarios. And I could kind of see the storm brewing of like just how much work was coming down the pipeline for these kids. And so I was like, I had to get back to doing like what I love. And like what I love is like making, creating, hands-on, challenging, accepting failure and growing from that. And so with my 3rd and 4th graders, I did the Mythbusters challenge. Can you fold a piece of paper more than 7 times? I was shocked how many kids have never even seen Mythbusters Junior or Mythbusters. And we tried to bust this myth like all together. Everyone was active, hands-on. I'm doing like official counts. Like I'm saying, oh, that's not a true half fold there. And so we're going back and forth. With my 5th and 6th graders, we built a paper boat. So I'm like, we have 15 minutes. Our challenge, I've hired you as an engineer to build the paper boat, and we want to know how many Abraham Lincolns you can get on this boat before it sinks. And then they had to upload like a video, just a video with their boat built, and given a prediction of how many pennies their boat will hold there. And it was just so fun, like kind of taking those handcuffs off and bringing that fun back. And you saw me a couple of days, how excited I was and how pumped up I was to do this. And I'm like, all right, turn it here. I'm like teaching all these kids. And, usually this could be, we do this with our 7th and 8th graders, and we don't let them talk for like the first like 5 minutes. Then they can work with someone else, but they can't touch someone else's boat. And like we did this like in 15 minutes. I'm like, we got boats, and then I had tutorials on our canvas shell as well. So just kind of getting back to that, what we love and like what we do. It just felt so good to kind of redefine ourselves as educators and and bring that fun back, especially knowing like how much pressure and like how stressed these kids were. And so kind of it was just an awesome week in that sense.
Well, and you said something that's interesting because there's two things happening that we're seeing, which is the kids were super overwhelmed by workload for sure. They were feeling very frazzled. It's new anyway, so getting back into the routine and just knowing, teachers finding the balance of knowing what's enough curriculum and what's, not enough. And so kids were kind of caught in the middle of that. However, what was amazing is, you have a crazy amount of attendance in your STEM classes. Kids are still showing up. They're showing up to exploratories, they're showing up to their specials, they're showing up to all of their core classes. And that is a testament to them as learners. It's a testament, in some respects or a lot of respects to parents being great with getting their kids where they need to be. And I just love to see that there's such a vibe, or this feeling of people want to learn. Like, these kids want to learn, and it is the coolest thing. Like, I've seen you do these lessons and you're so energized and they are like soaking it up, and I love that. And that was missing in the spring, it was. As much as I think it was a scary time and it just was a different learning environment. So online learning is very different, but I think it's a really amazing thing.
And the biggest thing is today is August 16th. The state of Arizona has set the date as August 17th per like the CDC guidelines. And I don't think me and you have a clue what those mean or
No.
what they stand for. Just the other day, I think we had 1,600 cases of COVID. Maybe yesterday it was down to 900 because it was the weekend. I know in Massachusetts, they're like down to 200 cases a day throughout the entire state. And they've already pushed back their opening from Labor Day till like the end of September. I know Queen Creek is opening, which is, we don't even know where that is, out past like Chandler, Gilbert, some area. I have no clue how big. You said there's like a bunch of high schools in that district. So they're like, I'm sure there's schools out that are open in Arizona, but tomorrow's that first day to open. We are still set to open October 14th after our fall break, which is still 7 weeks away, correct? What did Bonham say?
She did say 7 more weeks, so I don't know if she was counting last week. Maybe 7 more weeks.
Okay, maybe 7 more weeks.
I'm not really strong in that department. I just show up and just like if all of a sudden we have a holiday, that's just an added bonus for me.
And as teachers, we really have to remember to find that balance of, and me and you have been good at pushing each other. You're like, go for a run, like step away, like make sure you get out there and go for a run. And I'm like, make sure you get up and you're a walker in the morning. And I like to run at night. So it's been fun for us to kind of push each other to find that balance. And because teachers are going to need that, it's going to be a long, and who knows, maybe school opens earlier versus later, we don't know. But the biggest thing is understanding the social and emotional health of our students as well as our teachers, and then understanding that work-life balance.
I feel, and from what I'm seeing is what I noticed kids showing up with for as far as social emotional is they weren't super overwhelmed. They weren't as overwhelmed about fears about COVID and all the stuff that they had gone through, but more desperate, like starved for connections. And that's what I feel like I keep seeing is they just want to have connections. They want to have purpose. They want to have things to do that are meaningful. And which I think is, that's part of social emotional. They just need that part of it because they don't just want to learn. They want to learn in a meaningful way that's like a bigger thing than them. And so that's, it's just kind of been like, okay, we can work with this and then make that happen. And that's the thing is, the teachers on our campus, we want kids to love to come. And so I think people are digging deep and trying to be creative and make it engaging. So I'm loving it.
It's a lot, and that's something with my 7th and 8th graders. We're going into week 3 on Monday, so week 3, and I was like out of the gate, and I'm like, we got to get creative, we got to get thinking, and so many things that we do with stop motion is done with the iPad and different Piskel app, as well on the website. But I was like, all right, we're going to do things a little different. We're going to do a Google Slides GIF, and then I had them download Screencastify from the Chrome extension web store, which a lot of them have never even downloaded a web extension. And I was like, please, fingers crossed that it's not going to be blocked. And then,
which that's really great that it wasn't.
It wasn't blocked. And so they created GIFs of these stop motions, and it was just so fun. And we talked about like those connections. And then I worked pretty late last night, putting both classes, all their GIFs into one Padlet. And I was like, all right, here we go, to kind of share them so they can kind of see everyone's work. And I have all these GIFs on there, and it's so cool to kind of see all the cool GIFs that they came up with and what they created. And then you, being the go-getter that you are, you're like, and then I was trying to encourage you. I'm like, don't forget, like, you need to share like some of these students' work, like on Twitter, like, to inspire people, to get them excited about what's still going on in the classroom, so we can kind of share that message and get that out there. And you talked about your newsletter, and then you're like, I'm going to make 4 Padlets and share every single one's.
I don't want to leave anybody out.
And I was like, that's going to be so much work, like to create 4 separate Padlets and put everyone's sketch notes on there.
It's a life goal.
It is, and so like you were excited just to kind of see how I use Padlet, and I kind of share that and kind of go from there.
Well, you touch on a couple of things, which is things that we typically would do. Now we have to do different. So we might be able to do similar things, but we have to be creative and find a way. Not to say like, well, we don't do that anymore. It's like, well, now we can do it this way. And I have always shared tons and tons and tons of pictures and all kinds of stuff in my newsletter, and now it's just we're on Zoom, so you're limited with how many times you can capture the screen with the people on the screen. Plus my kids would like their first thing in the morning, so they're not super thrilled if I'm taking a Zoom picture of them, but okay, I totally just lost my train of thought. I was like, I got so distracted, but I know what I was gonna say. We have to be creative because now we have to find new resources or using them differently. And so you said you did use breakout rooms, correct?
Yeah.
And so breakout rooms in Zoom, when
it's not like a traditional date night breakout room.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but okay.
What are you talking about? You go to breakout rooms all the time.
Oh, you're talking about escape rooms?
Oh, escape rooms. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Maybe.
So an escape room. But the breakout rooms, because Galetti, like my Blake stare. When Mr. Galetti did that with us, it was cool, and I just remember thinking, oh, it's cool, I'd like to get to that, right? And then, but we were so engrossed in learning Canvas and all that stuff, and so, but I kept thinking, I have to get these kids talking, and when you have 30 kids in a classroom, it's really, really difficult to encourage them to have to talk. It's intimidating and all of that. So I just thought it's really out of my comfort zone to try the breakout rooms the first week of school or the second week of school when the kids are still getting to know you, and there's a good chance it's going to fail. But I just thought I literally cannot be afraid to try new things just because I'm worried I will fail, because then there's going to be a lot of stuff I leave on the table, and that's not what's best for them. And so I decided to do breakout rooms pretty early, and I think it was the first week, if I'm recalling correctly. If not, it was like right when we got back. And I loved it, and I did not nail it per se. Like there were some kinks that I learned, but then I was so excited, and then I was telling you about it, and I told Bonham, and based on that, like then Mrs. Langford, is doing breakout rooms, and Rudisell wants to do breakout rooms, and there's all these people that are willing to try it. And I just look at that, and I'm like, we've been asked to adjust an awful lot, but then people are still willing to say, okay, and I'll try this, because they're seeing all of these opportunities. Kudos to Copenhagen for looking at that. Remember the Cami app that you and I talked about when we did our Google training for the district teachers in the spring? She uses that as a big thing for ELA, and it's a digital annotating or web extension. But Copenhagen's realized that it's perfect for her math instruction. So now she is leading the charge and teaching all these teachers about how to use Cami and stuff. And so I just love to see how much we're growing as educators, because of this new way that we're teaching.
It's truly awesome. Mrs. Perry in second grade uses breakout rooms all the time. somehow I got polls turned on my Zoom, and I love polls, and it's been so great for doing Would You Rather and engaging conversations. I did a whole thing about an opinion piece about TikTok and whether they thought TikTok would be shut down. And then we took a look at the history of Blockbuster and these epic failures in the business world. You'd be surprised how many students have never been to a Blockbuster. I was shocked.
You. I don't know if you remember this, but that was one of my early jobs when I was young.
I remember you told me.
I worked at a Blockbuster. I crushed it. Please be kind and rewind. Just want you to know. Still got it.
You've just dated yourself. You've just dated yourself
okay.
Pre-DVD.
You know what? There's nothing like going to work and getting to watch movie trailer after movie trailer your whole shift.
And it always smelled like popcorn in there.
Yeah, that's because they made popcorn all the time. Yeah, it was a fun job, I have to say. But yeah, anyway, continue.
Can you name where the last Blockbuster is open?
I've seen it. I think is it in Washington?
Close. Oregon.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
so
why.
It's in Oregon.
Yeah,
they
feel
had
like
one in Alaska for a while, but the last one in business is Oregon. So we did a whole Shark Tank thing, and so like the first week, we both did flip grids, and we were kind of sharing some of our stories and the things they were saying, and you did a great job of kind of taking notes of like this whole thing where you kind of remember everybody. And then I responded to all mine. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm responding to so many flip grids here and going back and forth, and just kind of had that personal connection. But then this week I took it a step further and I did like a whole elevator pitch because we're going to app development. I'm like, you have 30 seconds. You're getting on the elevator with a shark. You got to pitch them their idea. So you got to sell them this idea using Flipgrid. And I only gave them 30 seconds and they had to sell this idea. And it was so fun to kind of change that up a little bit and have so much fun with our instruction and kind of understanding where our students are and what they need and what they want to get from us. One of your favorite things that I used to do in the classroom is the parent letter. So tell us about your parent letters.
Yeah, I did totally steal that from you. And I remember when you sent that home to us as parents. So basically, I don't remember if yours was that. Do you?
I do. I still have it.
Aw, I can't remember if you.
And I told you to save them all.
Yeah, I don't save them all. I save them all for the year. And then, I'm trying not to be a hoarder, dude. Like imagine us, elderly. We're just going to be like buried under piles of paper. Anyhow, so I made it, and I can't remember what you termed yours, if it was the same thing, but it's in a million words or less. Tell me about your kid. It's kind of the gist that it says. It's a little bit more eloquent. But I definitely got this idea from you. And basically, it's for many reasons that, that you did it, that I do it, which is I want to make a connection with parents for sure. And I want to hear all these great things about this kid because parents always see a different kid than who we get to see. So I want to know, like, what do they know about their kid that I don't know? And how do they see them? Are we going to see them the same way? And I also think it's good to kind of get a gauge for how you're going to be able to connect with this parent. Like, are they someone that, is responding? Are they just never going to fill this out? It's, you learn a lot just from the letters or not getting the letters. But these letters are just the coolest things because when parents really sit down and reflect and they really write about their kid, some of the stuff that they write it really does just make you tear up. And it gets me excited because I don't know the kids that well yet. And so I just keep thinking like, oh, this kid's amazing. And so then I'll bring stuff in like, I didn't know you did this, or, oh, your parents said this. Or I'll just say, like I did to Ross Copenhaver, your mom wrote the nicest things about you. And of course, as a middle school boy, he's like, it's so embarrassing. And then we just had a talk, like, be thankful we have our parents as our cheerleaders and, that they think so highly. And like, that's a really special thing. And kind of just talking about taking a parent's love and like seeing it as a blessing and a positive thing and not something to be worked up about. We had a really good discussion, but those letters are really, really special. And I'm hoping more still roll in. That's the difference too, is I typically send that out. I send it home with the kids, so there's something physical, so there's that reminder for parents. I think we all get buried in emails, and so I think that...
And Zooms.
And all that. And
helping other students.
Yeah,
so kids.
I think that the parents are just really, really busy right now, so I hope that I do get to hear more, just because, like, I like to hear about the kids. So I love them.
Now, what impact has it had on you as an educator as you started every year getting these letters?
I think I try to be more sensitive about understanding that the people that come in to my class are somebody else's person, that they're not just a name on a roster, that they are somebody's life. And it's a privilege, right? People are trusting you with their kids. And so I think for me, it just reminds me that this isn't, Joe. I don't have a Joe this year, so I can use Joe. This isn't just Joe, but this is, so-and-so's Joe who loves, dirt biking, and they love this, and they recently lost their grandfather, or, just those things, because it helps you teach if you know more about who the whole kid is. So if they have a good sense of humor, that is really helpful to know. If they're very sensitive and they don't take that well, I need to know that, because I use, that kind of humor a lot. And so I'm more careful about that. Or they're very shy. So I don't avoid drawing them out. I'm going to make that my mission to say, like, okay, how can I help that kid grow in that area? So it kind of helps me to have a whole extra, like, behind the scenes, like, agenda for each kid of things that I would like to be able to do to meet their needs that year. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
No, it truly does. I love, how much it means to you, and you often talk about those letters and how it really sets the tone for the year, and all the little things that you do in these first 2 weeks really sets the course of those relationships that last forever. And we are a K-8 school, so we're not like your traditional middle school. But even so, these are 8th graders, and this is like that last moment that those parents might write a letter like that. I don't know how many times in high school a high school teacher is going to ask like a letter for that. So it's like kind of this end of middle school, and then it's on to adulthood. So I love that you keep that going, and how much that means to you. Can you talk about your interactive notebooks and the covers?
Yeah, so again, I kind of bounced that off of you for this year, because it's hard to know how much you hold on to your routines from in-person teaching compared to online. And so when kids are coming to the Zooms, and when kids are going to be learning while they're not on campus, I didn't know, is it reasonable to just say, like, I really want you writing in this specific notebook? And what we had talked about early on, years ago, is that when kids have a personalized connection to their notebook, they treat it better, they put more effort into it, it's more meaningful, it's theirs. And I noticed that. So I always force them to decorate the notebook, which, some kids, like my daughter, Ella, she could decorate. She'd decorate every wall with Mod Podge and, pictures from whatever website,
Thrifting?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
What is that called? I said flip thrift, but I
your
think
flip thrift.
Yeah, or something like that. But so, some kids are like, oh, this is so great. And then other kids are thinking, I'm not really into this. However, even if you literally just do the smallest thing on it and you personalize it, it's yours. And it's just different. And so I didn't ease up on that. I still had the same requirements. And at their sketch notes this week, it was the first thing that they put into it. And what I love is they were immediately like, okay, so do we put this in the table of contents, and how do you want us to line it up? And they're already eager to have this notebook ready to go. You've seen over the years what kids do in those notebooks is the amount of effort. I told one student this past week, as she said, well, I didn't write in my book because I write messy, so I want to write it on this junky piece of paper, and then I want to rewrite it in my notebook. And I was saying, I had kids that would take double notes because that would be something that they wanted to do. But they had a lot of pride, and their notebooks are really helpful because they do bio next year in high school, and it's a tool, and they really get a lot out of it,
But it's not a normal tool in the sense of the end of the year comes, and so many of those you want to save it as an example.
I want to keep them.
Not only for the cover, but for the contents of what they put into it. and those kids will not let go of those notebooks.
They will not.
And I truly believe if it was just a notebook with a green spiral cover on there, they would hand those over in a heartbeat.
Yep.
But the fact that that notebook has stayed with them all year, it has that cover that's like so personal and they're so proud of. None of those kids will give you their notebooks.
They won't.
And they continue and they continue to use those notebooks for bio, and they're referring to things that they learned. And so I think that's such a great thing that, two things like you brought to me. You're like, should I walk away from sketchnote? And I'm like, no, that's who you are. Like it's something you take pride in. You really build an amazing thing and what you did with that. And then you're like, the notebook covers. I'm like, no, that's who you are. That's what it means to them. And so as teachers, we have to find that balance of, what is going to work, what's not going to work, and what can we still do from home, and how can we improvise with these things. And that's what I've been trying to find myself too. I'm like, I'm going to make it awesome. I'm going to bring STEM to you guys. I'm like, how are you going to do it? I'm like, don't you worry. I may have not figured it all out, but I'm going to figure it out. And you know what? And it just like I felt like alive again. Like when you say like how much difference from the spring to now, and to be able to be who we are and just really find that balance.
You are my hero in the fact that when you talked with your kids about possible topics, you threw in photography, and you have less background in photography or less time that you've done that with kids. But I love that when you saw that was something that time after time after time they showed interest that they want to do this year, that you're like, all right, I guess we're going to do this. And, you've been starting to kind of put feelers out and try and flesh that out. And I think that is a perfect illustration of what this year is going to be about for not just the two of us, but educators all over. Is just kind of like, oh, there's an interest here. And like, okay, I could do this. And like, I'm going to grow. And I mean, you're going to go absolutely nuts with photography. It's going to be so up your alley. But it's just not something we've really had time to do, because there's, just looking around your STEM lab, like there's plenty of other things that would be things that you would have right here. But when you don't have that anymore, you are allowed to branch out in these other really cool ways.
Which I'm excited. You're a big photographer.
Love photography.
You love film photography. You love collecting old cameras. So photography is your jam. Me, I like Prisma. I like a nice filter. Like I love
But you love pictures.
I do love pictures. And time and time again, the students were like, I was just so excited to see photography. And then you just rattled off some ideas of like what I could do with the students. I'm like, all right, here we go. I feel like a photography teacher. I almost like, I don't know if Apple's even teaching those classes. I might go take one of those Apple classes. I doubt they're teaching them right now at the Apple store. They basically, you basically have to have physical to get in the Apple store.
Yeah, you do. It's legit. Yeah.
But maybe I could find one of those Apple lessons online in terms of photography. I'm sure they have something. But you want to engage the kids' interest and get them excited and share what they've done. And that's why I'm so excited for tomorrow to share this Padlet, and so they could all see their gifts. It's like there's no names attached. There's just gifts thrown up there, and to see what other people did and to really push each other and be like, wow, look at what they did there, and maybe I could work harder and be more creative. But I was just blown away. Like every time I'm like, check out this gift. This is just so awesome, and it just felt so good. But the Zoom schedule is tough. Things are gonna get better. Everyone's working out kinks. I was in here and a student missed my Zoom. So many students were like, I was doing homework and I came late, and I had this sweet little girl come in just all upset, and I was actually in between classes and you were in here, and I was like, we're here. I was like, there's no need to cry. I'm like, there's no crying in STEM. I'm like going, A League of Their Own, Tom Hanks. She was so little. You can cry in STEM, but these are things that we can solve on the moment. And she was just so upset. And I was like, we're doing Mythbusters today. I'm like, we're doing a hands-on experiment. I'm like, I got some time. I'll get a piece of paper. And I taught this lesson 1-on-1, and all of a sudden, I'm like, now I challenge you to get your brother involved, and I want to see how you bust this myth. And I sent her on her merry way, and she had a smile on her face. And, just these moments just make you happy, and, what you're able to give these kids and get them excited about, what we love to do, and that's inspire and challenge them and, bring learning to life.
Well, and that's the hard thing is our whole thing is trying to make connections and relationships. And when you're in person, I mean, you teach first through eighth, and you have to do that on the same level with all these different age, groups. And for that little girl, that was so meaningful. And it's hard. Like, they're trying to navigate. I don't even know how to navigate the day specials that you guys, your schedule is insane. And, we don't do that in the upper grades. So I don't understand the method to the madness. But, anybody else could have just said like, oh, you're not in the right spot, check your thing and just move along. But that was your downtime. Teachers love their breaks, right? We do love our little breaks. It gives us a chance to kind of mentally take a breath and recharge. And you worked right through that and did that for her. And for her, she's going to have a positive attitude about school. She's going to have a positive attitude about you and STEM. And that is huge, and she was so happy. So that was the cutest thing ever. I just love that.
And there's so many stories like this. Teachers are working harder than ever before, and they are not stopping. They're going to do everything to make this as smooth as possible. The hard thing for us to fathom is, this Monday is 6 months. 6 months that we've been socially distancing. We've been in our homes with our kids. Never in our wildest dreams. Not to call you out at the beginning, you called this COVID thing a step above the flu.
I would like to apologize. Thank you for throwing me under the bus. I will say this. Yes, early on, I did not understand the magnitude of what we were really dealing with. I was really, really wrong and misjudged that. This is true.
So it's been a long stretch. It's something that we could have never imagined. Hopefully we see the end in sight. Here, more and more schools starting to open in Arizona. Cases kind of come down. People being smarter. But then we have no clue what that looks for us as educators moving forward. But teachers are doing crazy awesome things. And students are doing crazy awesome things. And parents are doing crazy awesome things. It's just, we're going to get through this. It's something that we will never see in our lifetimes ever again. Hopefully never again. And it's going to take that creativity to engage the students and bring them back and push them forward.
And the other thing that I really, really love to see, I would imagine it's happening across all campuses, but we're very, very fortunate because what sets the tone for us as educators is our admin and the support that we have been getting from from both Galletti and Labui. I didn't want to mess up how to pronounce.
She's a fan of the nailed
I didn't
wall.
want to pronounce it wrong. That's all, and I didn't want to call her Sherry.
Ouch, she's probably on her walk right now.
Okay, I apologize,
Sherry. A former guest on the Nailed It Wall.
My apologies. I just didn't want to say it wrong, but anyhow, it's all good.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. So we're thankful because I have had a different experience than you. You're teaching from home and, you're teaching from home, which is a really tough thing to do for so many reasons. Plus, with the little kids and keeping that schedule. And I've been teaching on campus and, the admin constantly comes in to check on us and touch base and make sure we're supported and just kind of, I love how it feels to be back with them and just have them let us sit down and talk to them, about our challenges. And Sherry's been great about calling students that we need to follow up on and just making those personal connections with home and with students and all of that. And any kind of troubleshooting, I mentioned to, Tony that, I couldn't get the polls, on Zoom and some other little challenges, and he investigated. So, I think that this has been such a collaborative effort to make online learning a smooth transition, and I think overall, it has been.
Yeah, I don't know what else is to be said. It's been, we're going to week 3.
Week 3.
I feel like I'm not that tired.
No.
It's still feeling good, feeling positive. I think we're ready to tackle the week and bring on more stories and, take that positive vibe out in the world and do some pretty awesome things. Is there anything that we haven't covered this week that you want to touch on?
Well, I just think it's important for anyone that's an educator to be remembering their fellow educator friends and touch base with people and make sure that they're all good, because I do think one of us will have a bad day and the other ones really need to have a good day. And so, you pick up the people that are struggling. But I think that we need to be intentional to make sure to be keeping an eye on all of our people in that respect, because we don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed or burned out. And I think it's important for us as educators to be mindful of our kids, that they are processing an awful lot right now, and that we really need to not forge ahead with online learning and forget to bring them with us, but that we're going to have to take extra care to make sure that they're kind of coming along for the journey. And just, as much as we can give kudos out to parents, I think we need to do that, because this is tough. This is tough, and you have a million stories of people that you hear about at home trying to balance all the schedules. I mean, you said that your kids have, timers on their iPads. So just, I think it just needs to be remembering to, just put little things out for people to say, hang in there. We know there's some challenges, there's a lot of good, just, kind of be there for them.
And you do a great job reaching out to everybody, letting people vent. You tell your own stories and picking people up there. So remember to reach out to everybody. And something I think you said is so important there, as we kind of forge along with online learning. Don't forget to bring the students along with us. And as we say the students, we mean the parents and the admin. It's a community effort that we're going to have to pull together, stay positive, and just hope this COVID goes away. It's been a long stretch, and I know the end is coming, and I think it's going to be the happiest day when we have students back on campus. And I just see how happy you are every day to be teaching from your classroom.
I love it.
Talk about your new chair. You didn't even talk about your new chair, thanks to PTSO.
Yes, our PTSO is amazing, and they, at the beginning of the year, told us we had a certain amount of money that we could pay, buy something on Amazon. They were going to do it for us, and they were willing to buy me this chair. And, that seems kind of silly maybe, or of all the things I could buy. But we are literally in front of our computers such a big part of the day. And, the chairs that we're working with, they're not amazing. And so my chair is pretty sick. Even though you said it looked like a grandmother's couch from the 80s, it is awesome. It is comfortable. And if we ever have a chair race, I will destroy you, because that thing glides beautifully, as you did see.
The thing does look like a SpaceX spaceship after I kind of reevaluated. But when you sit on it, it kind of has that grandmother plastic couch, pshh.
It's so comfortable, and my kids know that that I was so excited. It came in way more pieces than it should have, but it all came together, and I'm super grateful. And again, PTSO, to start the year, to have that kind of support, that was really, really kind of them to do that. And I'm so grateful, because it has made a huge difference in my comfort and just sitting there, day after. And the kids obviously immediately are we love that chair. And, it was a good conversation started. But yeah, so I feel very supported, literally and figuratively.
Well, shout out to PTSO.
Yeah.
Mrs. Scofield's advice: get a good chair, people. That's key in this online learning.
Yes. Elevate
stand
your
up.
computer.
Make sure you stand up. I feel like we've already been sitting too long today. I'm getting antsy. I got to get up and stand up a little bit.
You're turning into Galletti.
I know. I'm going to get one of those treadmill ones where I'm just walking and on my computer there. But as we say at the end of every episode, people, if you can be anything in the world, be kind. Now, if you loved hearing stories about Mrs. Scofield's new chair, our Zoom battles, and everything that we love about online learning and these stories, check out my GIFs I just tweeted out that the students created with Google Slides. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Every Tuesday, the latest episode of the Nailed It Wall will be downloaded to your phone. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us. You can find me at Mr. Lane the STEM Guy.
And me at A Positive Proton.